The gentleman from Ohio is recognized to close for the minority.
Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, here we go again. A higher spending, a higher taxes, and people don't think there's a difference between the two major political parties. One only has to look at what's happened so far this year. We had the continuing resolution that was passed in February that had $6 billion worth of excess spending in it. Now we've got an emergency supplemental to fund our troops in Afghanistan and Iraq that has another $22 billion worth of excess spending in it. And if you look at the discretionary spending levels in this budget for this next fiscal year, we have another $22 billion worth of additional spending that's outlined. Now, that's not bad enough. We're only 4.5 months into this calendar year, and my friends across the aisle have authorized an additional $62.5 billion of additional spending. How much spending and how many taxes do we want to impose on the American people? We all know that the tax cuts of 2001 and the tax cuts of 2003 have led us to one of the most robust economies that we've seen in our history. Why? Because we lowered tax rates, we gave people reasons to invest in our economy, jobs were created, 5 million new jobs were created, more people earning money, raising their families, paying their bills, and guess what else they're doing? They're also paying more in taxes. That's why revenues to the federal government over the last 3 years have increased at over 12% per year. They're likely to do the same again this year if we don't impose upon this economy the largest tax increase in American history. It's coming. There's $200 billion worth of tax increases needed to fill this hole. There's this reserve fund, all these promises. If we can raise taxes somewhere, we'll give you this extra spending. And so we're going to see the largest tax increase in our nation's history once again. You know, I was listening to this debate earlier in my office, and I began to ask myself, what is the essence of this? Let me go back to the 1970s. I grew up in a household with 11 brothers and sisters. My dad owned a bar, and we were Democrats, all of us. And I remember starting a new business in 1975. I remember paying taxes. I remember not owing many taxes because I was starting a new business. But in 1978, as my small business was beginning to grow, the top tax rate in our country was 70%. That means 70 cents out of every dollar over that minimum, which was about $75,000, 70 cents of every dollar I got to give to the federal government. That's when I began to realize that maybe I wasn't a Democrat any longer. Here I was trying to grow a small business. I was a subchapter S, so everything that my business made, I had to pay taxes on personally. That meant I could only leave 30 cents of every dollar in my business to help make it grow. And even under those tax rates that were suffocating, I was able to succeed. But let's think about the last 25 years. When Ronald Reagan got elected in 1980, and in 1981, in a bipartisan way, we started a process of lowering tax rates. Over the last 25 years, by and large, we have lowered tax rates dozens of times. Only a couple bumps, a couple increases along the way. The result of all of that over the last 25 years has been a growing economy, better jobs in America, more jobs in America, and more revenues to the federal government. It's a prescription that has worked. Look again at the 2003 and the 2001 tax cuts. We reduced tax rates, and the result was more investment, more jobs, and more revenue to the federal government. Now, at some point, there is a point of diminishing returns. But I'll suggest to all of you that we're nowhere close to it yet. Ladies and gentlemen, I became a Republican, and I came to Congress because I thought that we paid too much in taxes and the government was too big. The heart and core of who I am and why I'm here is to fight for a smaller, less costly, more accountable government here in Washington, D.C. This budget represents every reason that I decided to become a Republican and every reason I decided to come to Washington and to do something about it. Big difference is simple right here. My friends across the aisle believe the government knows best what to do with the American people's money. More of my colleagues on my side believe that the money the American people earn is theirs, and that they can make better decisions on behalf of themselves and their family and their future if we allow them to keep more of the hard-earned money that they make. I can't just sit back and be quiet about higher taxes and higher spending. This is the largest tax increase in American history. This will, in fact, disinvest money from our economy, will put people out of work, and put us on a path to higher deficits. And if the largest tax increase in American history isn't the saddest part of this bill, I'll tell you what it is. No entitlement reform. There's an economic tsunami coming at us. It's Social Security, it's Medicare, and it's Medicaid. And while Republicans over the last 12 years have made several attempts and made some changes, and I would argue not nearly as many changes as we should have, there is no entitlement reform in this bill. That means the amount of debt that will build up over the next 5 years, as outlined in this budget, will far surpass the debt that accumulated over the last 5 years. You all know what's happening. There's not a member in this chamber that doesn't understand that if we don't deal with entitlements, our kids and our grandkids can never afford the benefits that we've promised ourselves. We can look the other way. We can act like it doesn't exist. But we've made promises to ourselves as baby boomers that our kids and grandkids can't afford. And yet, we see this tsunami coming at us. We can measure it. We can measure the speed and the size of it, and yet we do nothing about it. My colleagues, this is not the direction that I believe we should go in. And I would ask all my colleagues to stand up and do the right thing and to say no to this budget resolution.
Gentleman's time has expired.